It's a really basic question. What is a grant? I feel like most of us kind of know what a grant is, but can we actually define it? Well, we're going to do that. The Oxford Dictionary defines grants as a sum of money given by a government or other organization for a particular purpose. And that's pretty much it. It makes sense. I guess dictionary writers know what they're doing. Here's another definition from this book, Nonprofit Kit for Dummies. I've got an affiliate link below. Grants are formal contributions made to an organization by foundations, corporations, or government entities, often to help the nonprofit address defined goals. That's really similar to the first one, but there's a lot to unpack. Let's get started. Let's take the very first phrase. Grants are formal contributions. To my knowledge, there's no such thing as a legal definition of a formal contribution, but I think common sense tells us that it's one that has a lot of paperwork attached and a lot of strings attached as well, and that definitely holds true for grant. What organizations can receive grants? That's kind of a tricky question, so stick with me. It really depends on who's giving the grant. Now, a government can give a grant to pretty much anyone it wants to, as long as it falls underneath the regulations and the laws. They can give it to people, to businesses, to corporations, to other governments, or to nonprofit organizations, even churches. But a lot of grants come from charitable foundations, and foundations are limited as to who they can give those grants to. I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but for the most part, foundations are required to give their money to nonprofit organizations. That's why they exist, and I'll explain that next. The next part of the definition is foundations, so let's stop and talk about that. A foundation is technically a nonprofit. You can see my video about different types of nonprofits. I've got that linked below. But the whole reason they exist is to make the world a better place by donating money. A foundation can be set up by an individual, by a company, by a family, by a group of people. Here in the U.S., foundations do have a lot of rules. One of those rules is that they have to give their money to nonprofit organizations, and they have to give 5% of their total value every year. But that's averaged over 5 years. For example, they can give nothing one year and give 10% the next year, and they're still going to fall within that 5% a year average. A foundation might be run by a staff of people, maybe one person, maybe 100 people, or it might be staffed by a family member who just does it in their off time. Sometimes foundations are managed by trust companies or banks or legal firms or some other kind of entity. Foundations also get to choose the way that they give away their money and who they give it to, as long as they fall in the right category. They can require that you just pick up the phone and call them and they'll send you a check, or they can ask that you send them a 1,000-page proposal. It's really up to them. Every foundation is different, so it can be complicated to work around them, but it's not mysterious. And let me tell you why. You're going to love this part. Foundations, just like you, are required to file a tax return form every year. It's called a 990 PF. Foundation tax returns are public information. So you can go look up any foundation that you want and read their tax return. You can look up the return for free, and it will tell you who they are, how much money they have, how they decide to give it away, and who they gave money to last year. You can look all of this up. Now, if you really want a quick how-to on how to look up these 990s and what information you want to look for in those, look for the link below to my 990s. It's a downloadable document, and I'll take you step by step on how to look up that foundation information. What's a corporation? Well, this one's easy. It's a for-profit business entity. And just like individuals can deduct donations from their taxes, corporations can also deduct donations from their taxes, and they can do that through grants or gifts. But they also get the added benefit of all the great publicity that can come from donating. For example, let's say a company advertises that every time you buy one of their pretty expensive toothbrushes, they will donate one to a child in need. What a great marketing tip. It makes me feel good about them. It also inspires me to pay a lot more for their toothbrush because I figure, well, a needy child is getting it. So not only does the company get all of that goodwill feeling, but every time they donate that extra toothbrush, the one I've already paid for, they get to deduct that value from their taxes moving forward. Doesn't that just make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside? But my skepticism aside, there are corporations that really do wonderful work and give away billions of dollars to make the world a better place for all of us. If you want to find information about corporate giving, you can usually find that on their website. They may call it grants, they may call it corporate giving, they may call it community investment or giving back or some other title. And they'll usually have all of the information about how to seek those grants on that website, or they'll have a contact number and you'll be able to call them. Now let's take the next term. Do I really need to define what a government entity is? I think we all kind of know that, but here's what you should know, is that could be anything from a city, a town, a municipal entity, all the way up to a big federal agency. So government grants come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, so you always want to check with your city, check with your county, your state, your parish, whatever it is, and see what grant opportunities they have available, especially these days. All right, so we're now to the final phrase in this definition, to address defined goals. Don't lose the importance of this. It's vital to having a successful grant program. Very few grants that are available out there are technically what they call free money. There's always strings attached. There are very few grants available for general operating or unrestricted, as we often call it. Most of the time, grants need to go for something very specific, especially if you've not ever developed a relationship with that funder in the past. The grants that you get for those unrestricted items or the general operations, those usually come later after you have a really good relationship with the funder. Again, it's important to remember that every grantor out there gets to make up all of their own rules for how they want to give their money away and the hoops they're going to make you jump through to get them. Not only to get the money, but then all of the rules that you have to follow after you get the money. You are obligated. When it's a grant, you're obligated to follow all of those rules, not just to ensure you get another gift down the road, but to make sure you don't have to give the money you've already gotten back to the funder. You don't want to do that. So let's look at our definition again. Grants are formal contributions made to an organization by foundations, corporations, or government entities, often to help the nonprofit address defined goals. Now you know what a grant is. Remember to like and subscribe to this so you can get more videos about nonprofits. Bye, Hotshot.